Good day, ma'am. I am Catherine Gam from BSHM 4A, and for today I am going to report the Chapter 1 in Business Organization and Management, which tackles about business in general. People have engaged in business activities since the earliest beginnings of communities' existence. When early man produced more of a crop or caught more game animals or fish than he could consume and bartered the excess for something produced or caught by a neighbor, he was engaged in business activities. Business was already developed in ancient world. Recent excavations have unearthed business transactions written on clay tablets which are 6,000 years old. The Code of Hammurabi, promulgated around 2000 BC, had provisions governing commercial transactions. The Roman Empire had a clearly defined wage systems. Devices of business control like accounting and business functions like insurance and banking date back to the Middle Ages. Business is equally ancient in the Philippines. It also reaches back into prehistoric times. Historians have shown that the Philippines lies at crossroads of ancient trade and immigration. So as early as the 9th century, Arab traders were already visiting the islands. By the 12th century, Chinese traders took over most of the Philippine trade and even established trading communities in the Philippines. The galleon trade was the trade between Manila and Acapulco in Mexico, which was carried on mostly during the 18th century. The Spanish community in Manila tried to accumulate fortunes by speculating on the annual trip of the galleon to Acapulco and back. However, this famous trade did very little for the development of the Philippines and contributed practically nothing to the fortunes of the Spaniards. The ones who obtained the profit bonanza were the Chinese. This was because the goods shipped to Acapulco, though carried by the Manila galleons, originated from the cargoes brought by the junks from China. The main item traded was Chinese silk. There were also precious metal works from India and rugs from Persia. Philippine products were an insignificant portion of this trade. When the galleon returned from Mexico, most of the profits were immediately claimed by the Chinese and other Asian traders. Whatever remained went to the Chinese in the Philippines, who had supplied the Spaniards what they needed while waiting for the return of the galleon. These profits were then remitted by the local Chinese to their relatives in Fokien. Thus was shaped the pattern of specialization of the three people in the colonial economy. The Filipinos were the menials and the tillers of the soil. The Spaniards were the governors, and the Chinese and Sangli mestizos were the contributors, tradesmen, capitalists, and entrepreneurs. Business in the Philippines and in other countries of the free world is basically capitalistic in nature. This means that society entrusts the workings of the business process to the guidance of the private businessman. Business is capitalistic if we have 1. Private ownership of non-personal means of production, land, industrial plants, equipments, factories, transportations, facility, and other capital goods, or at least the larger part of the community's capital goods are owned by individuals, persons, or by private corporations and not the state. Number 2. Production for private account. This means that private initiative gives rise to production essential for private profit. The earnings from the business go to private individuals or groups. Number 3, voluntary savings and institutions of bank credit. In every economy, certain basic functions have to be accomplished. The determination of what, how much, and for whom to produce, the location of the goods and services produced, further growth of the economy, and the distribution of economic benefits and maintenance of relations with other countries. In capitalist economy, or otherwise known as market economy, prices serve as indicators between the consumers and the producers. The private owner's objective in engaging in business activities is the earning of a handsome profit as a result of the use of his productive assets. The motivation for profit serves as the greatest incentive for economic drive on the part of the owners of resources. So the evolution of capitalism in the Philippines dates back to the days of the barangays, which were self-sufficient in the production of the needed commodities. Production was merely sufficient and to meet the needs of the barangay members, and the limited trade wherein the people were engaged was conducted by barter. The many imperfections of capitalism led to many hostile reactions and other criticisms, which led to the formation of various forms of ideologies, the foremost of which is Karl Marx. So, according to Karl Marx, all mankind must sooner or later pass through the succession of different historical stages, ending on the attainment of the stage of socialism and finally communism. The identical factor between the two is the common ownership of the factors of production, unlike in the capitalism wherein private ownership exists. Marx makes certain distinction between socialism and communism. In socialism, goods are not yet sufficiently produced to meet all the material needs of the members of the society, while in communism, the said state of abundance has already been achieved. In socialism, man produces as a result of incentives like wages, while in communism, production is undertaken without any prodding since work becomes natural to the members. The study of business. The modern business culture has such an all-embracing and pervasive effect in every single member of the Philippine community that it becomes advisable to have a clear mental picture of its meaning. Every person who lives in a city, a town, or barrio daily enters into business transactions for foods he eats, the clothes he wears, the things he needs, and the things that satisfy his wants and desire. For the business student who is engaged in the study of basic subject like business organization, it is even more essential to have a clear background of just what the term business means. So, attributes of the term business. Business has been defined as an organization of the people with varied skills which uses property or talents to produce goods or services which can be sold to others for more than their cost. Or it may be considered as the system through which economic activity is organized and directed by those who seek to make a profit. A fundamental characteristic of business that distinguishes it from other economic activities is the fact that the goods produced or purchased or the service created are not primarily for the consumption, could not according to these characteristics of business be considered a businessman, but the modern farmer who produces for the market is, in a very real sense, a businessman. The extent and nature of business activities are almost as diverse and comprehensive as the totality of the social and economic interests of man. W. R. Spriegel classifies business activities into three broad groups, namely commerce, industry, and service. So commerce refers to the transfer or exchange of goods and services with the movement of goods from point of production to point of consumption. Industry is primarily concerned with the creation of form, utility, or the production of goods that are used either by the consumer and are therefore called consumer's goods, or by other industries in the further production of other goods and therefore called producers' goods. Services are the third broad classification of business. These enterprises cater to personal needs of people or with the rendering of a personal service. Businesses engaged in services are not involved with the buying and selling of goods of the manufacture of creation products. So why people go into business? People go into business for a variety of reasons. They may go into business as owners and employers or as employee. The decision to go into business and not into some other activity as the priesthood or medicine or law may be a result of conscious thought and deliberate preparation over a period of years, or it may be due to the fact that a person finds no easier or more satisfactory way of earning a living. Both owner and employee need essentially the same personal characteristics that are required to succeed. Both also enjoy certain values which are derived when people go into business. These values are social approval, number 1. The businessman has a high social standing in the community. Number 2, profit. The major factor of motivation for going into business is profit. Individuals enter into these activities because of the anticipation of a reward for their toiling in the form of monetary benefits. Aside from this, returns must be realized by their productive assets so as to maintain a satisfactory level of productive operations. Service to the community and to employees. While profit is an important value, it is not an overriding one. There is a maxim in business which states that he profits most who serves best. Personal satisfaction. This personal satisfaction comes about from the social status conferred on those engaged in business. It also arises from the many opportunities given to the businessman to satisfy his creative urge. Next is livelihood. People go into business to earn a living. The pervasive influence of business in human activity is such that very often that only avenue where one could enter in the hopes of earning a living is to work a commercial, industrial, or service establishment. Power. Some people enter business because they expect to rise up to position, prestige, power, and leadership. The protection. Quite often, individuals inherit a business and rather than suffer a loss through selling it, decide to run the business themselves. The reason why people go into business are as infinite as the choices that are open to individuals and the motivation. Thus, it is also important why we should have a knowledge of statistics, economics, sociology, and psychology. Statistics deals with mathematical tools, trends, and decision theories. Management can be seen as a logical process which can be expressed in terms of mathematical symbols and relationships. Next is economics, deals with the study of the collection of scarce resources for the satisfaction of human wants. It is necessary in business since the producer has scarce or limited sources, so he has to know the different combination he can arrive at with his given amount of resources. Sociology deals with individuals' relationship to society as a whole. Management can be viewed as a social system or a system of cultural interrelationships. And last is psychology, is a science which deals with the study of the mind, a working's knowledge of concepts which motivates individuals towards the performance of their tasks and their attitudes and reaction to various situations can greatly help the businessman in the implementation of different personal policies and in his dealing with the other people in their organization. The choice of a particular business. In choosing a particular business, a person may exercise deliberative judgment. He may be guided not only by personal preference but also by a variety of influences and considerations bearing upon him. For those who are free to choose, the following factors may control. Available funds. The availability of funds definitely limits the type of enterprise that may be formed by an individual, partnership, or corporation. Next is special aptitude and interest. In looking for business opportunities, one must take an inventory of his personal aptitudes and interests. Training, education, and experience. Even though one has the interest and an average aptitude for a given line of business, if his training, educational background, and experience have been in a field foreign to his current interest, it would be to his advantage to work as an employee in that field for a time instead of assuming immediately the risk of proprietorship in the business that interests him more. Social status of the business. Social standing influences to a marked degree the satisfaction that an individual gets from his business endeavors. The competitive situation. The competitive situation should always be investigated. Competitive may be so keen that the margin of profit is narrow or at times non-existent. Some persons enter a highly competitive field and win a place for themselves by rendering a special service that the customers. Location factor and social values of the particular community. An individual with social and economic ties in a particular place may want to engage in a certain business which can only thrive in another place. The location factor and his social ties will guide him in arriving at the decision. The present or potential demand. Demand is another factor that must be evaluated before a final decision is made to enter a given business. Social significance of business. People have begun to realize the social and economic significance of business activities since these affect all of us in some way or the other, directly or indirectly. The secret of business success. Many of John D. Rockefeller's competitors went out to business not because his oil was better than theirs. So that's all for my report. Once again, I am Catherine Gam, Business M4A. Thank you so much and goodbye. Have a good day.